For section 8.3, number 1, this section you're going to need your trig library, but you will not need your inverse table. Our goal here is to be solving the equations using a single trigonometric function. So we're going to get it in terms of like x and then look that value up on our table. You are going to be using algebra to solve the trigonometric equations for one revolution around the unit circle. So that means all of my answers need to be between 0 and 2 pi. Notice it does not include the 2 pi, so you will not have 2 pi as an answer, but anything and everything up until that point. So our goal here is we want to isolate the trigonometric function and then use the unit circle, the trig library here. So when it says visit the unit circle, that means we're going to use the trig library to find the angles which satisfy the equation. So some of these may only have 2 answers, some may have 1, some may have 3. They can have up to 4 answers, 1 in each quadrant. All right, so my notes are going to look a little bit different than what yours does. I did give you extra space on your paper, but I've got more information on here. If you want to write down the stuff that's typed on the side, please feel free to do so. It's not something that you have to have down, but you do need to have the examples. All right, so the first thing is to isolate that sine function. So my goal is to get sine completely by itself. Think about it as x. You want to get it so that x is by itself. So our first thing is we're going to subtract that negative, or that square root of 3 from both sides. And then we want to divide both sides by 2. So we have sine theta is equal to negative square root of 3 over 2. You're then going to look that up on your trig library. So this would be trig library. For most of you, it's yellow. Some of you are still using your original white ones. In the sine column, look down every radian value that has a sine of negative square root of 3 over 2. I took a screen capture here, so I don't have everything, but I have the ones where it's needed. So for this particular problem, I have negative square root of 3 over 2 is at 4 pi over 3, and I have negative square root of 3 over 2 is also at 5 pi over 3. So my answer then will be that theta takes on the value of 4 pi over 3 and 5 pi over 3 to satisfy those conditions. All right. Next problem. Again, we want to isolate this cosine, or secant this time. So I want to start by subtracting 2. So I have 6 secant theta equals 12. Divide by 6, and we have that secant of theta is equal to 2. So under the secant column, you want to look up 2 on your trig library and write down every radian that has a secant of positive 2. Notice you'll have 2 of them that have negative 2. I went just the positives. So our answers are going to be pi over 3 and 5 pi over 3. If your trig library is a handwritten one, it does not match, make sure you grab a yellow one. There should be some up in the tray up front. All right, for part C, notice we have a squared here, which means we're either going to have to factor or we're going to have to take square roots. Because you only have the word tangent in one place, generally that means you're going to take square roots. So again, we do want to start by isolating. So I'm going to start by subtracting 1 and divide by 2. So because the trig function is squared, you need to take the square root of both sides of the equation, because I have to have it as just tangent. So taking the square root, taking the square root. On that left-hand side, then, I have tangent of theta. On the right-hand side, I don't want to forget that plus-minus sign. And so I have plus-minus 1. So this time you'll need to find all 4 values of tangent. So you're looking for where it equals positive 1 and equal to negative 1. So that's going to occur at pi over 4, 3 pi over 4, 5 pi over 4, and again at 7 pi over 4. On your chart, they're not right next to each other. It's just how it's showing up here, so I can get them all on. So I will have pi over 4, 3 pi over 4, 5 pi over 4, and 7 pi over 4. That question is done. All right, so that's it for the notes. Make sure again that you are not using 2 pi as an answer. because it's not included in the interval that's given to you. You do want to isolate all of these. None of them will require you to factor today. So isolate, make sure it's a single, make sure you take that square root if needed, and then look up all the values on the chart. So most of your answers, there will be 2 answers. There will be a couple of them that have 4. And that's it for today. Thank you.